We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180. Our guest by phone is David Valadao, 30th District Assemblyman.
Hey, David, you mentioned that the unions are in favor of this high-speed rail, but who says the unions are in the United States or in California specifically are going to get the jobs?
We haven't seen that, and that's one of the concerns as well. Obviously, we want Americans to get the jobs, we want Californians to get the jobs, but there's always going to be some type of construction job alongside of it, even if it's not laying down the track, because it might be a foreign country. No one in California really knows anything about high-speed rail, but there's a lot of projects that go alongside of the buildings, infrastructure around, moving around the project, if it's an overpass or whatever grade separation it may be. There's always something out there that needs to be built. So there is an opportunity for them to have the jobs, but some of the jobs. But they are the big driving force behind this. Up here in Sacramento, every time there's a press conference, anytime there's anything going on, labor's the first one there to show up and say, hey, we need this thing, and they're ready to fight for it.
Well, I've seen the people that have supported it, at least in this area, the Kern County area, are only the people who are contracted currently to do work for the organization or are in line to possibly get some kind of work out of it. I haven't seen the general public come forward and say they really want high-speed rail.
That's a good point. The only people that are lined up to support the thing are the ones that are on the take, the ones that make money off the project.
And most of those would be unions and people that have contracts with them to do work at this point, right?
Consultants are another one. Consultants have done very well in this project.
Oh, wow. How do I become a consultant to high-speed rail? I must know something.
Well, that's debatable.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, David, are they going to go through with this thing? I mean, the high-speed rail, is it, I mean, on our end of it down here, you keep on hearing people in communities say, no, we're not supporting this. Is there enough push from labor and other special interests to get this thing through? Are they actually going to build it?
The best odds I've heard so far is 50-50. In my personal opinion, I'd say it's 80-20 that they start building this thing.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
no, there's $6 billion that they've got to spend, and that's enough to get that first 130 miles, and that does include anything rolling on top. No trains moving back and forth. All it is basically building the track, and no electrification for the cars.
And the
train to nowhere.
Trains are built in...
There is no train, so it's not a train to nowhere. It's tracks to nowhere.
Tracks to nowhere. I love it.
But when they get the train, won't they be built in Japan or China or somewhere?
Well, there's different companies that are bidding on it, but we don't really know all that. From the best I can gather up here is their plans are about 15 to 20% drawn up, so no one even really knows much about it, even on the inside. They're rushing this thing forward because of that $3 billion that they threw out right before Election Day in 2010, and that's one of my biggest problems with this whole thing is we're rushing into this project in high gear because of $3 billion. And $3 billion is a lot of money. But on the overall project, it's 3% of their numbers.
Yeah, that's incredible. 3%. So in other words, you're looking at $99 or $100 billion is what this thing's going to cost at this stage of the game. And the government never comes in at what they say they're going to come in. So
Caltrans on a project, I think the average project for them is around $3 to $4 million, and they average about 40% over cost.
Oh, my God. So if they're 40% over cost, you're looking at $140 billion.
And it's already been, I forget which group, if it was the LAO or Department of Finance, but one of them actually said that they would prefer Caltrans take over because they're a more efficient group than High Speed Rail Authority. So 40% is more efficient. And those are on small projects. I mean, to go over 40% on a $3 to $4 million project, but when you see a project of this size, I can see there's a lot of opportunity to go over on that one.
I think that there's plenty of opportunity to restructure the roads and increase the highways and do all kinds of neat infrastructure work rather than building a high-speed rail. That would be my personal opinion, which really doesn't mean anything.
Well, and you're 100% right. When we talk about private sector jobs, I mean, high-speed rail is an interesting concept, and I don't mind having the conversation about it someday in the future and looking at it. But when you talk about creating those private sector jobs, what do we need to create those jobs? We need to be able to transport goods. High-speed rail does not transport goods. I can't even imagine someone going to buy groceries on the high-speed rail because what they spend on that ticket when they get down to the grocery store, they can't afford to actually buy groceries. But if you have your roads, you have your airports, and you've got your normal rail transporting goods because you actually transport goods by air, by road, and by rail. But high-speed rail doesn't do any of those.
Mm-hmm. We're having a conversation with 30th District Assemblyman David Valadao. So, David, question. You are running for Congress.
Yes, sir.
What district?
It'll be the new 21.
Okay.
Who's your competition?
As of right now, and we'll know more when the deadline closes, but as of right now, there's a guy by the name of John Hernandez out of Fresno who's running. He doesn't live in the district, and I don't know if he has any business in the district.
Now,
I know he's not in office as we speak. So,
is he running as a Republican or a Democrat?
Democrat.
Okay.
So as far as Republicans, I'm the only one, and Democrats, there's only one. There might be a second one. We're not sure, but we'll see what happens there. But the race actually seems to be going really well. We're working really hard. People in the community are very excited about it, and really looking forward to winning this.
Now, David, the obvious question is, I mean, you've done a good job in the Assembly for 2 years, but you've only been at this for 2 years. So what do you feel qualifies you and makes you ready to run for Congress after only 2 years in the Assembly?
Well, and if you look at my Assembly as a reason to be qualified, I think my private sector experience, the fact that I own a business, the fact that I've been outside of in the private side my whole life, other than these 2 years, I think is what gives me the qualification to run for office. What we do in government, what we're supposed to be doing in government is allowing the private sector to create jobs. And what we've got in government are people that know nothing about private sector trying to help us create jobs. And when you've never lived it or done it, how can you help or how could you be any part of it? We need more people in office that understand it, that have done it and seen it for themselves and can understand how government can get out of the way so private sector can create those jobs. And I think I'm probably the best qualified to do that. That's
why you're running for Congress.
Yes, sir.
You don't think that those talents would be just as well served here in California by running another term?
And that was a very tough decision for me. When we looked at and when I was approached about running for Congress, we sat down and thought about it and talked about it. My wife and I looked at the schedule because I've got a young family, and where could I be most effective for my constituents, and being in a position where you're in the majority and not just sitting there and watching me get run over in Sacramento was one of the things that made me decide to run for Congress.
Well, as of right now, you're in the majority, but that doesn't mean you'll be in the majority if you should get elected.
Well, and you're right. That's true. And the majority goes back and forth all the time. And no matter where you are in Sacramento and D.C., there's always that opportunity you'll be back, and so you're always relevant. I think people will be a little more willing to work with you. In Sacramento, it's a little tougher to gain the respect because you'll always be the minority, at least in what anybody can see in the near future.
Yeah, in the foreseeable future. So one of the things you're running on, obviously, are your accomplishments in the last 2 years.
Well, I think I'm running more on my business experience more than anything.
Okay. What accomplishments have you had in the last 2 years in the Assembly?
Well, we've been able to, as much as we can. I got one bill passed and signed. I'm proud of that. But what I've been able to do is work with other members and get some bills changed or fixed or even stopped that were bad for business in the community. And we've done our best at that. But obviously, it's tough being in the minority up here to stop all of them. I would have loved to have stopped RPS. I would have loved to stop this high-speed rail, at least slowed it down until we can sit down and think about it a little more. What's the other ones that we're looking at? We've also got bills on unionization of farm workers, card check, stuff like that we were able to stop. So there's always something that we were able to do, and I'm happy I was part of that.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck as you run for Congress, but I'm going to be sorry to see you go because California really needs people like yourself to, as you point out, stop the Democrats from making this a welfare state.
Yeah, no, and I think we've got great candidates. I think we'll be able to keep the seat, and I'll still have all the connection. You still have, you've got Shannon Grove. Shannon Grove's a very strong voice in Sacramento.
Yes, she is.
She's a strong voice everywhere.
But she'll be there, and we'll still be working together. And we've got a lot of other members in Sacramento that I have great relationships with. So I'll still always have a line in to see what I can do from where I'll be at. But when you look at what D.C. does, what Washington's done, especially like on high-speed rail or water infrastructure, any of the things that are important in my district to look or any projects that are going on, Washington, D.C. has such an impact because the money comes from there typically to fund these projects. And when they've sent that money to build high-speed rail instead of water infrastructure, I blame the Democrat that was in office that wanted that or was used that to get reelected. And I think that's one of the reasons why D.C. is so important. When you're there, you can direct some of that money in the right direction. If it's going to come your area, you want to make sure it's spent on things that are good for your district.
Yeah, and you've been a voice for water and have been a voice against the high-speed rail. And David, I appreciate you in the last 2 years. You've done a great job, and we wish you nothing but the best in the future. And I think you're going to make a pretty good congressman.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I need to be
I'll reserve my vote, David.
Well, David, thank you for the time. I know you had to squeeze us in this morning, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, David.
Bye-bye.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.